Peter McIlvenna, so kind of you to do this. Sadly, everybody knows now that you can't be with us today in Thetford, but you've kindly done this recording. I think it's very important for people to understand other things that are happening with regard to the rape gangs in this country and things that they possibly don't know about. Peter, you and I may say Alan and others, but particularly you two, have been instrumental in bringing about some sort of retribution, I think, proper retribution, for certainly one person who was a victim of the rape gang. Would you like to tell us how you went about it and the outcomes, please?
I will do. Thank you, Liz. Always good to be with you. And yes, sorry, I can't be with you in person. Always much more fun. But so I don't think that anyone sitting there will realize that the system is not joined up. So you have an individual, a rapist, charged, sentenced, and imprisoned for being a part in these rape gangs, these Muslim grooming gangs. But all the survivor or the victim, that individual, all they get is that that individual is locked behind bars for a certain length of time. There is no further automatic help. And if that individual goes away and has assets, then the survivor does not see any of those. Those are stay with the rapist, and then when he gets out of jail, he can pick that up, whether it's a property, whether it's a business, whether it's vehicles, whatever that is, he keeps that. So it was a conversation that Alan, Craig, and myself had with Lord Pearson, and Alan had met Liz and had talked to her, I think, along with Baroness Cox, and was discussing what we could do. And we decided, well, let's sue the rapist, and that had never been done before. I mean, you can't, Liz, you know, if you come up with something, I think this is simple, this makes sense. Why has no one thought of this before? It's simple, and yet no one had. So we talked to Robin Tilbrook, lawyer, and we said, okay, what's the process? We looked at the process, and then we moved on that. So it's a longer process than we thought, and there are many crazy parts. Where we are now, let's jump forward and then touch back. Where we are now is the judge 15 months ago given an award of 425,000, and then up that to 450,000. That is what the judge says that she should get. Now, the judge doesn't help. The courts don't help in any part of that. The judge just makes this statement, this arbitrary ruling that is a legal ruling. But if you want to get that, then you need to enforce that. And that's where we are at the moment. We're at the enforcement action. But the system basically exists. The legal system exists for lawyers and solicitors and clerks and those in the court to make money and to move up the scale. The courts don't exist for justice. Now, so you need to know exactly how it works and how the system is played against you and how you can operate within that establishment. So that's what we found right from the beginning. Right from the beginning, even though the rapist was in jail, so according to English law, he was guilty of 2 counts of rape and was in jail. Only served, six and a half years and was out in half that time for good behavior. What is a child rapist? What does it mean, good behavior? Now, obviously, our government decide that they're good and they should get out after serving half that time. But if the survivor wants to start this process, despite the fact that the individual has been jailed, you think automatically a court would decide, actually, we see the sentencing, 2 cases of child rape, actually, that would have affected you in many ways. Emotionally, it would have affected your earning potential, it would affect so many things, therefore, you're due this settlement. Like if you're involved in an accident, you break your arm, whatever, then there are actually levels and they're listed. There doesn't seem to be that for this case. So if a girl wants, she needs to apply for an order. And of course, the courts say, well, that's going to be £10,000 if you want to proceed in this. Again, they get their pound of flesh at every point. Their courts are the most evil institution I think we have in this country. And then you have to say, please, we would like not to pay because the money is not there. They take 9 months, they consider that, and then they decide, okay, you don't have to pay. And then, of course, you need to request an anonymity order, a freezing of acid, or all different parts to play. And then you're allowed to proceed without paying an exorbitant amount of money, and then you go through the system. Now, I'm told, well, it's because of COVID the system has failed. Now, I think it was screwed up long before then. That exasperated the problems. So at the moment we're going through that. Liz is the only girl who's gone through that process, never been done. And we are nearing the end of that process in that we have enforcement notice, and then we use that enforcement notice to actually take his property and sell it. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment, Liz. A long drawn out process, never been done before, and at least we've given a roadmap for how this can be done.
Peter, you and I have talked for it must be a good 5 years about returning to common law and the evil practices of our courts, which are just there. In actual fact, they're all businesses in their own right. So they're all there to make money. And in certain other parts of the proceedings today, we will be talking about common law and about how the courts manipulate everything to their own advantage and take money left, right, and centre. And you're quite right. There should be no money exchanging hands. And also, Peter, the thing that always worries me about courts is if you take somebody to court and you're found to be totally correct, you then get levied with a load of costs yourself, which to me is totally wrong. If you had to go to court, and I don't know whether that's happened in the case of Liz, has she had to were costs awarded against him, or did you have to pay costs as well?
So we had to raise 30,000 to do this, and that was thanks to Lord Pearson and Lord Vinson, who said, we believe in this. This must be done. They met with, certainly Lord Pearson, met with Liz and said, we want to help you, and therefore we will raise the money, and they did that. But why should each girl have to know a member of the House of Lords or someone who has access to that finance to be able to do this? This means that 99.9% of the 250,000 or up to 1 million girls who've been affected, they don't have access. And the despicable nature of our system means that even if the legal system worked well, there's a separate part. Is the legal system accessible to most individuals? And it's not. I mean, we're not like in America where people talk about, oh, I have my lawyer on speed dial. What does that mean? What does that mean? We are not in that situation in the UK. And it is awful that a conservative government, so-called conservative government, every one of those leaders, and no one has talked about changing the system. I haven't heard it from Reform, but who knows, it may be in one of their policies to change the system so that individuals automatically get access, and that these people are not taking exorbitant fees for doing very little. And again, the whole system is set up just like the tax system. The legal system is set up to be so complicated and complex that actually you need to then pay people. So there are industries around this, and those within those industries don't want to make any changes because then they'd be out of a job. But you could make the legal system, as you could make the taxation system, so simple that everyone has access, everyone can understand it. But that's not the point of it. The point of it is to keep people in business, and therefore it must be complicated to the vast majority of people, apart from those who have paid to get access into that inner circle.
Now, you said there that Lord Pearson and Lord Vincent kindly raised the money. Has that been levied against the rapist, or has that money just been used to pay, and that's the end of it? They've paid and they don't see any of that back.
That's been used and they don't see any of it back. So we've talked to Liz, and that's one of the conversations you have, that okay, we've got the 30,000 that allows us, and that is only because we asked the court, please don't charge 10,000 for the privilege, and that 10,000 is not just the beginning. That 10,000 is in different parts. So we had to apply at least twice to get that. So it'll be 50,000 without that. And that is with people working. I haven't taken a penny from that. And I know that Robin and the barrister have taken minimal amount. But actually, if you had the full money paying the full costs, you'd be looking at not 30,000, but at least 60,000. But that money is just used to access the court system, to pay for that process to move along. And then if the survivor gets an award, not just the judge giving an award, but you actually are able to enforce that and receive that money from the sale of assets, then you look at what you have and then how that's distributed. So let's say there was 100,000 from a property, then does that mean the survivor gets 70 and then 30 goes into a pot again for another case? Again, those are conversations that Liz has with the legal side. But no, that 30,000 is just to access the legal system. And then you go all the way through. The system is just stacked against any victim in any shape or form. It is working against them. And yeah, I can't hit the legal system more than I do, Liz, and I'm sure you're the same.
Oh, I believe me, Peter. We've been 7 years going through a legal system. Chaz and I took the council to court. It took us 7 years. They threw everything at us. We ended up in the Royal Courts of Justice a couple of times, the Court of Appeal. They threw it. We won at the end. But by the time you've taken out all the legal expenses, etc., and these days, in the old days, you could get legal aid for some of these things. Can you get? Could Liz have got legal aid,
No.
Peter, or not? No.
So legal aid only exists for rapists, Liz.
Yes.
So
we should realise this, Peter.
I know. I remember back in 2020, we had a petition and looked at calling the government to deport. It was the Rochdale Nine. 3 of them were dual citizenship, Pakistani and British. And we had called on the government. The government basically said, well, piss off, basically. We don't care. That was from whoever the Home Office minister was at that time. We got a dismissive letter just saying, go away. It was Robin Tilbrook that gave a pre-enforcement letter, and they rejected that. But these, we found out later that 2 million has been spent on public money on a number of the Rochdale Nine fighting their deportation. How dumb are we that we want to send someone away, but we say, but we'll give you money so you can fight against us, so you can stay. And it seems to be a government that doesn't know what it thinks, completely schizophrenic.
Peter, we know what the government thinks, and if it's anything to do with British people, you can go and do whatever it is to yourself that they wish you to do. But if it's anybody else, and we bend over backwards I won't go into, we go into so many different things where the British people are at the end of the queue, and it has to stop. Peter, so at the moment, you have a court order to take repossession of the house. How far are we going? Can you update us where we are to serve this notice and get this all underway?
Well, let's just say that the legal system is not joined up and it's all separate. So whenever the judge says, okay, you've got an award of this amount, then you need to ask, okay, can we now enforce it? Surely enforcement should be part of that. Then you have to, of course, the prisoner, you can't just phone up the prison system and say, where is Muhammad, which prison is he in? Actually, you need to find that out. The legal system doesn't tell you. So again, that's not joined up, and I won't get into all the details. But then again, if you get the enforcement notice, then it's up to you. That's not automatically done. Surely that should be done by the court. If the judge says this is the amount, and if the judge says, yes, you can enforce that, and these are the assets, then it should automatically be that those assets are transferred over to the legal team of the person fighting the case. But of course, that would mean common sense, and that would mean the system is there to help, and that would mean that they're not there to get their point of flesh. So you need to, every point is a separate point. We are at enforcement, which is near the end, but we haven't completed that yet. When we do complete it, I personally, I would love to do a live stream outside the property and actually highlight, this is the property, it's been sold, but that may affect the sale. The main thing is you have the sale, you get the money, and the survivor gets the money, and that is it's not justice, but it is something, and it is something we are able to do. And a British government, a so-called conservative government, should have really made this an automatic situation, but instead they want to drag these girls back through the courts to go through the same, despite the fact their perpetrator's already been found guilty. So yeah, we are near the end, but not yet at the end. So there's a little bit more to run on this.
Peter, it's absolutely horrific, because if you think, I know that we can prove at least 250,000 girls have had this done to them. You and I both think that figure is wrong. Lord Pearson thinks that figure is totally wrong. It's probably closer to 1 million. And let's just say it's not only white girls, which is what is usually the Sikh people were very, very good in their work that they did to bring this to attention as well, because it's Sikh girls have been in the same position, probably, I hope not as many, I shouldn't be any, but at least we do know that it wasn't just white girls. I've always feel that we ought to stand up for the Sikh community, who did an awful lot at the time. But, you know, the whole thing, if all these people did what you've done with Liz, you know, where would the court system be, for goodness sake? The whole of the legal system has got to be broken back down to get it back under common law. Cause no harm, loss or injury. If you do, you go before your fellow peers. I'm fed up to the back teeth with these corrupt judges. And that's the only word you can say for them. They're letting rapists out, and these people with all this child pornography. Anybody that's looking at these horrendous things that are done to children, anyway, they ought to automatically be sent to jail.
Yeah, and the thing with the Sikh gangs, they were there at the beginning. I think they were there in the what is it, mid-80s? Because this goes back to the first report was 1975 in the Rotherham Advertiser, and then there were groups of Sikh men realizing that their girls were under attack by these Muslim rape gangs, and they had provided a protection. I don't know if it was a Sikh Defence League, without making a nice name, but I don't know what group they were called, but they highlighted this issue and fought against this. So it is basically that any girls that are not Muslim, and they're seen as a target of these Muslim gangs. And of course, this is the government talk about Pakistani grooming gangs, that is, but the culture, Pakistan is a new country. The Pakistani culture is based on Islam, and Muhammad showed this by taking war slaves as Islam spread. He was, of course, a warlord. Islam spread by the sword. And the example that Muslims are now using, thank God, most Muslims do not use his example, but those who do, that is the reason they're doing it. And when they talk about Pakistani, I know sometimes now they're referring to, well, originally was Asian. Let's be specific. Then it was Pakistani, and I know a lot of commentators are now talking about Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. I should just go for they're Muslim. It's Islam that is the issue, and let's have a grown-up conversation about it. But yeah, this is ongoing. As far as girls have said, it is ongoing today. Maggie Oliver has said that. Many others have said that it is still happening today, and the police are still afraid to address this issue because they don't want a race riot, was the term they've used before. So they are still afraid to do it. And despite the fact that we've had 70 odd trials in 40 cities across the UK over 40 years, it is still happening, and this has not been stamped out. And now we've gone from the frying pan into the fire with a a fake Conservative government to a Labour government, and it's not going to get any better. So thank God for Elon Musk. That's what I'd say.
Yes, and we must thank God for somebody else as well, who at the moment is where he shouldn't be, in Wood Hill, which is absolutely, I can't tell you the work that we've all done with the Attorney General, who hasn't even had the courtesy to reply to any letter. So, it is absolutely outrageous. And I learnt in an interview with somebody else that there is 40% Muslims in Wood Hill prison. So Tommy is at huge risk, and God bless him. It's a bit like Andrew Bridgen. When Andrew brought the postmaster scandal to the House of Commons, he's airbrushed out of it. And at the moment, you hear everybody else is now on the bandwagon as if they've been on the bandwagon for years and they've done nothing. And the one person who has been banged up because of it. So Tommy, God bless.
Yeah.
Peter, I wanted you to come on though, because I know how much work that you put into this, and people don't see this side. I wanted people to be educated on what actually happens to these girls, because there's no criminal injury compensation for these girls. And that to me is absolutely outrageous. If you break a finger in a robbery or whatever, or break an arm, as you said earlier, there is a scale. Why no scale for children that are being raped?
I think every individual has been convicted of rape or of murder, that they should have their assets frozen immediately, and then you look at that being redistributed. That would be common sense. And if we had an individual leading the country who had been actual conservative, then they would have done that to try and conserve our society. But of course, that hasn't been done. And you're right, the person who has spoken up about this more than really any, and from back in his EDL days, is Tommy, who's now languishing 9 months in solitary confinement. And Jared and I went to see him and had 2 hours with him, and of course had to sign an NDA, so can't actually discuss the conversations we had. But you can imagine, with Elon Musk shining a light on free Tommy the 1st of January, and then onto the grooming gangs all this month, it's been an exciting start to the year, and Tommy has been aware of that, and that, as you can imagine, has lifted his spirits massively. And the information has come out, which I knew about, that Elon Musk is funding 2 of the legal cases, the one against terrorism. I did call me being a terrorist. He may be a rogue, but I think terrorist is a stretch. And I know Elon Musk is also funding, according to Tommy's team, his fight against the solitary confinement, because he's a Category C, Category D prisoner. He's a civil prisoner, and yet he's in the most secure wing of a Category B prison. And you're right, I've seen figures 38% Muslim. And they can use, the thing is, they put him in a prison where he is endangered and then say we have to keep him solitary confinement to protect him. It's despicable. And they purposely did that. Maybe he should be in an open prison. We shouldn't be in a prison at all. But these rapists, they serve their last year in open prisons where they can do it their life. So someone who shows a film is in a solitary confinement, and yet someone who rapes a child here serves the last year of their sentence in an open prison. Make of that what you will.
And you were talking about having a government. If you think about our present Prime Minister, and I don't really like to think about him, he was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service. So if anybody could change the law or put something going into Parliament, wouldn't you think the ex-leader of the Crown Prosecution Service could do this? And will they commit to a proper investigation? No.
No.
The whole thing, mainly because most of the people that are involved in these councils are part of these gangs, if the truth were to be told.
Oh, they are, and no council has been ever prosecuted. I know that in Rotherham they all stepped down, and then most of them got reappointed. So there is no punishment. It's a slap in their. And again, that's the other big issue in this, Liz, that not a single member of the establishment has ever been punished. My understanding is that there haven't been police officers. They've been demoted or moved around. but I don't believe there has been a police officer serving time or a council official serving time or MPs serving time or head of the CPS serving time or head of child services serving time or head or CPS for collapsing cases serving time or the police for destroying evidence and calling the girls prostitutes serving time. Not one of these individuals, and especially with child services and the police, they were there, should have been there to actually protect children and do what was in their best interests. And instead, they were arresting fathers who were angry at their daughters getting raped. So all these individuals in all these institutions, our establishment, they really should be punished. And yet not a single government cares about punishing those individuals. So what we're doing is in terms of suing the perpetrator, but you've got the whole other side of no one in positions of authority actually being punished and serving time. And they should all be locked away for life. If the police officers have failed, which we've seen time and time again, the CPS actively collapsing cases and child services knowing this was happening and completely ignoring the plight of these girls.
Yes, and when you look at some of the work that Tommy did, we all went to Thetford, Peter, because Tommy did a huge expose on Thetford. Now, the chief constable, funny enough, was a woman at the time, Pippa Mills. She's now been moved to the Met. I should think probably promotion. Now, I wrote to her at the time and said, with all the information, if you remember, Tommy did all that investigation and got it all absolutely chapter and verse and bang to rights. The police wouldn't even look at it. Yeah. And I said to the chief constable, this Pippa Mills, and you're a woman. If anybody, I can understand sometimes, although it's not excusable, but, a woman having, knowing what it would be like to be raped, and a child and doing absolutely nothing with evidence that has been provided for you. The whole thing, Peter, is rotten, rotten, rotten.
It is. In the UK, 98.5% of rape allegations are dropped. So only 1.5 end up in a conviction. Either 98.5% of women who are saying they were raped are lying, or else the system is completely screwed up and is not working. And no one, every year we see that figure drop a little, and no one seems to be disgusted by that. And it makes you wonder, well, if our MPs are not disgusted at the lack of prosecutions on rape, then how twisted and demented are they? The answer is probably very.
And we're doing a whole section on what goes on in Parliament. You will see it online afterwards. So it's not just what's happening with the grooming gangs or the rape gangs, as we now call them. Peter, thank you for doing this. And I'm sorry that you're not with us. You'll be with us again, I'm sure. And keep up the good work. And as soon as you do get an actual result, will you let me know? We'll do another interview so that we can put out when the house has been sold and actual money has gone to the girl who went through all this and bravely went through it all again to bring it back into court. I mean, I can understand it should be automatic. They shouldn't have to go through it all again. But these men are found guilty. Their assets need stripping immediately.
Oh, they do, and that's what has to happen. This automatic process. But we'll certainly keep you posted, Liz, of any updates. And I always love going to your events, Liz. You do so much work in pulling together great speakers and also great people. And that's what those events that you organize are about. Meeting like-minded people, spending time, that social aspect. So I'm sure everyone who's there in the event will have a great time of reconnecting with people and hearing great.
We'll try hard, Peter. Thank you very much.